Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We have Isobel Breheny-Schafer from Long Island, New York. She's at WUSB, Stony Brook University Radio, and she's going to kick us off today, starting to talk about music recordings on air and how that works on her end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Isabel. Thank you.
All right, so thank you, Stephanie, for the introduction. Again, my name is Isobel Breheny-Schafer. I am the general manager of WUSB 90.1 FM and 107.3 FM at Stony Brook University, broadcasting from Stony Brook University on Long Island in New York State. And it's a college community radio station with a variety of programmers who have a variety of skill levels. So, our staff have a range of tech abilities that go from none and beginner to advanced, including myself. I'm always learning something new. We've been broadcasting on the FM station for 45 years. We just finished celebrating 45 years of broadcasting, 21 of which I've been a part of the station for. 16 years I've been the general manager. So I've gotten to see a progression of tech related programming styles and ideas, and especially with COVID in 2020, using more remote and recorded programming has led to some changes at the station in our programming schedule. Previously, our general manager was Norm Presslin, and he is still our faculty advisor for the radio station. We have student directors that help to manage the station on a day-to-day basis. We have a chief engineer. He's a licensed engineer. Frank Burgett is his name, along with some other staff that help with like production related and engineering responsibilities at the radio station. But the programmers themselves all need to know as much as possible about the tech stuff at the station. So I have a little guide that we use, and it's not just for music recording, but for any recordings that we use at the radio station. So it's some basic information. It's not going to get too technical, but I'll share as much of that information with you as I can. I have some documents I can share after the fact, and I may also ask you to share my screen at some points. Okay? All right.
You bet.
So to start off, I wanted to just maybe talk about a couple of takeaways from this quick presentation. So some benefits of using recorded programming at the station, in addition to live programming, is it allows for expanded programming options, right? It allows for emergency fill-in material if you have staff that may be not able to get to the station for some reason. It allows for some staff to work remotely, and it removes geographic restrictions. And it's also a training resource for new staff. So, for example, when some of our new staff are learning and training, one of the things that we do is we assign them an engineering shift. So their job would be to download a Pacifica program from AudioPort and make sure it gets on the air on time. And it shows that they're being responsible. They can show up at the studio when they're supposed to, and that they are also learning how to use the equipment. And then just some tips that we have, because we keep our recorded materials on an iMac in the studio for the whole staff to access and use. So keeping the library organized and up to date, having a few people responsible or one person responsible for doing that is really important. Making sure that the engineers, the programmers, and the on-air staff know where to find program materials. Making sure that the actual on-air schedule on a day-to-day basis is shared with all of the staff so they know about any last-minute needs or programming changes is really important. Making sure that the on-air staff are including all the components of a program in their pre-records. So we make sure that the network programs that are pre-recorded that we use are air checked regularly, and that the on-air staff are adding pre and post station IDs, public service announcements, and other programmatic needs as needed beforehand. They can either use pre-recorded items or they can do live reads on the air. Because as a reminder, as most radio stations, we're licensed to broadcast programming material. We're not licensed to record and distribute programming material. So we have very specific rules about using the recorded material on air, especially music. So I think I'll share my screen at this point. Go over some of these notes with you. All right, so we have a copyright statement and policy that is related to our music library, because sometimes people will ask for copies of the recorded material that we use or copies of the show. And we let staff also access the broadcast material for their own personal library needs. So this is the statement that we use, which everyone can just read right here, just as like an extra safety precaution, because sometimes we're using copyrighted material. Please be advised of WUSB's copyright notice. This material is property of WUSB 90.1 FM Stony Brook. It has been shared for your personal and educational use. It may not be recorded or distributed without the written permission of any copyright holders. So that covers if there's copyrighted music in any of the recordings that we use. The material may not be used for material profit. WUSB Stony Brook maintains the right to rebroadcast the material. Copyright WUSB. So we keep that as a standard standard policy, and also if we do share any of the files with anyone. So for using pre-recorded programming materials, we request that the files be submitted to us in an MP3 format. Staff, if they are recording their shows, can use their PC or Mac. They can use their phone. They can also use Zoom. Not Zoom for music material. Obviously, that's not going to work too well, but for interviews, it is okay. It's not what our engineer prefers when we're broadcasting things, but we do use Audacity to edit the files to get them to be broadcast quality. I've posted a couple of useful apps right here if people are recording things on their phone, which well, I don't need to link to it, but the links are in the document right here. And then we have some pre-recording library filing rules. So we have folders on our iMac that are listed with the name of the show, the date recorded. The files are downloaded to the iMac from a shared Google Drive, a Dropbox, or we use WeTransfer, depending on the size of the file. And the types of programming that we have available on that iMac are downloaded files from Pacifica, Democracy Now!, individual shows, some evergreen material, some specials, some news reports, public service announcements, event promos, underwriting, and our fundraising radiothon announcements. The engineers who are in the studio, whether it's an individual programmer or an engineer that's assigned for that day, they have a list of what needs to be aired and when that needs to be aired. Some of the examples are Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. we air Democracy Now! So that has to be downloaded ahead of time onto the iMac, not streamed, and then played from the iMac. Friday, we have Health Matters and the Play It Forward project, also some special broadcasts that air in the afternoon. Those Health Matters is a talk show. Play It Forward project is a talk show. It also has music included. And those are pre-recorded. So they're pre-recorded, they're submitted to the station as MP3 files. They are downloaded into that folder on the iMac, which is networked through the board for broadcast. And then Mondays at 7 a.m., we use Pacifica programming. The DJ gets to choose what program they want. They have access to audio port in order to do that. These files that are downloaded, they stay in the iMac for 2 months. We have a couple of people that are in charge of cleaning up the iMac and making sure that the folders stay up to date. We have archives on that iMac, which are downloadable files for the staff library use. So archives of all of our previous programs are linked on that computer. They're not housed on that computer, but they're linked on that computer from another computer in the studio that we have them stored on. So they can play an archive of any of our past shows, music, talk, anything. Public service announcements are on there, underwriting announcements on there, and either links or MP3 files to news and public affairs shows. And then just additional content. So our rule is you have to play 2 to 3 PSAs per hour. And of course, announce the station ID. So if staff are pre-recording their show, we request that they either time them out so that we can live read or add a public service announcement or station ID to it, or that they include them in their pre-recorded shows. And then the folders on the iMac, we have them labeled, so it's easy for everybody to find them. They're labeled with public service announcements, underwriting, daily programming, so things that normally air each day, weekly programming only airs once a week or an alternate week, network specials, Democracy Now!, evergreen programming, our own archives that are clean, and they're labeled clean so they can play them any time of the day, specials, submitted digital music libraries. So when we get music from outside sources submitted to play on the air, we have a folder just for that digital music that people can go to and play. And those are also labeled FCC clean or not. And then our own digitized music library, there's a link to access that on that iMac as well. So I included a link on this document, which I will share with everyone, to WeTransfer Pacific Audio Port, obviously. And then I just have some random notes down here. But I'll stop for a couple of questions at this point, and then I have another document that is going to show you our recorded requirements for shows. So at this point, does anybody have any questions that may have popped up to get the discussion going? If not, I will continue on.
Ursula, looks like you raised your hand.
Yeah, Isabel, is this just a dedicated computer in the station, or is this a server that all of this content, or does it function as a server?
So this is just a dedicated computer in the studio, but it's connected to our server, which is in the other room. So we have a server in the other room where the digital music files are stored on.
So people at other computers in the station can access all this from
yes.
From
yes.
their,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of a big storage area that you then connect to the server, so
right.
that it's not directly on the server, but it's basically on the server.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And why do you do that? Why don't you just put it on the server?
Because we have 6 different studios in the radio station. So we want people to be able to access things from all of the different rooms. And then the computer that's in the main on-air studio, that's the one where we just keep recent files. So we said we keep them on there for 2 months. So so for that week, usually it's like 2 weeks though, not 1 week. Any of the pre-recorded shows, the actual hard files will live on that computer in the folder, but the digital music library lives on a server. Does that make sense?
So this well, I don't want to, this inventory of files is not on a server. It's on a different computer.
So, some of them are on the physical computer in our main broadcast CR1. Some of the physical files, the actual MP3s, are in the folders on that computer for like 2 months. And the other folders have links to the digital music library and our archives that are on another computer. So people don't have to look around for it.
So why don't you just put them all on the server? What's the reason for not just putting it all on the server?
That would probably be a question for our engineer or IT people.
I'm sure there's a reason. I'm just curious.
I think it's
what it is.
because we don't want to overwork the computer that's in the main broadcast computer. Like we don't want to overwork that computer. We don't want to use up too much of its memory or stuff. So that gets cleaned up regularly, that computer and things. You know, a lot of times people have the ability to just download whatever they want to that computer. So it can get filled up pretty fast. So that, you know, that would be my reasoning behind it, at least from talking to some of my staff that are managing that part. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions?
I see Morris has a question.
Yeah, Morris.
You have staff of board ops who control the state. I mean, your station apparently is not automated, so
Right.
you have board ops and a format, like you have all these studios. Mm-hmm. So there is a general format though, right? That someone has to follow for your programming?
Yes. Yes, we have, I mean, the station is, we have a set schedule that changes 3 times a year. So it changes in the fall semester, the spring semester, and the summer semester. But the schedule's set for each of those semesters. So like an academic semester, right? The schedule is set. And we have engineers that are like day engineers that are assigned to make sure the programming is going on the air as it's supposed to. So they're not necessarily traffic controllers, and they're not in the studio full time either, but everyone's like kind of assigned a day. So like manage that day and make sure that everything goes on the air as it's supposed to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. So with the 7 studios, that's pretty much for people to be able to record their show. All goes to your, they just upload it all to your central computer.
Yeah, all the studios are not always in use, but we have 3 rooms that can go on the air live and broadcast, and then the other 2 are for doing production. Yeah, so 5 working studios that are completed right now is what we have.
Is there a time delay on that live programming in case something that's, explicit, or, somebody say the wrong thing? Or
we do have a delay system. Yes. Everybody does not use it, but we do have a delay system, 7-second delay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I'm going to jump over to this other document here. So this is our recording guide. I have our studio numbers listed there, but so for pre-recorded programming, if our staff want to pre-record a show and submit it for broadcast, here's the guidelines that we use and that we give to everyone. For unscheduled shows that are going to be used as filler material, so it's not a regularly scheduled show, because we do have some show hosts that will just record stuff that we can use as fillers. So we ask them not to include dates or times, specific references to current or future events, just in case their program gets broadcast at a different time of the day, or any, we just use it for fillers. But scheduled programs should include those items. The file format that we request it to be submitted in is an MP3. The encoded bit rate is 320 kilobytes. Stereo channel mode, the sample rate, 44.1 kilohertz. Tagging and metadata information we like includes the title field, the name of the show, the segment number. So if it's 1 part or 2 parts or 3 parts, the date and time that the show is supposed to air, and the artist field should include the DJ and host's name. So those are the basics that we ask them to submit the file in. We don't like to use iTunes, YouTube videos, any of that for the recording. So if our DJs are recording at home, they're actually recording off of a CD, recording off of a vinyl album for the most part. Some people do use iTunes though, or YouTube, but they have to do a lot of pre-editing ahead of time if they're using that. And the sound quality is just not good. The program segments, we ask them to send 30 or 60-minute files, and the program files must stand alone, meaning it doesn't have to be pieced together or extra PSAs inserted. A song or bit shouldn't run over into the next segment, and make sure the file names are clear. They have to show the name, the date of airing, segment number, length of segment. And an example is Campus Connect, that's the name of a show, and the details that go along with it, right? So when is it going to air, the segment number, how long is it? Okay. A station ID has to be included every 30 minutes of the programming, whenever they'd like it to be included, but it has to be within that 30 minutes. public service announcements have to be included. If they're not included, then the time allowance for the show has to allow for public service announcements and station IDs to be added. So if it's a half an hour long show, 28 minutes is the size of the recording, 56 minutes is the length of the recording, if they're not going to include public service announcements or the station ID. The files have to be shared 72 hours in advance of the show's airtime, so that if there's any technical problems, we can do a sound check on it. Anything else that we need to check, 72 hours is enough time for us to check that. The files have to be sent to Frank Burgett, who's our station engineer, our main engineer, but it's also copied to our station address. So just in case he doesn't get it, it goes to some of our other staff. All of the files have to be sent at the same time. They can be shared using Google Drive, Dropbox, or also WeTransfer for a larger file. So any questions at that point? No? Okay, I'm going to share this document with everybody so, you know, people can look and ask me questions afterwards. But for evergreen programming.
Yeah, Isabel, yeah, I was wondering, what is what kind of success do you have with compliance with this?
Great success, because their show's not going to air if they don't do it.
Oh, so it's mandatory.
It's mandatory, yeah. Because I should have said that. It's mandatory. It won't air if it's not done like this. So Frank will send it back.
How are people trained?
How are they trained to do it?
Yeah, I mean, do they get this document when they start a show, or how?
Yes, they all get this document at the beginning. If they want the ability or permission to do a pre-recorded show, they get this ahead of time. So they can look through it, they can read through it, they can ask questions, they can ask another staff person to help them if they're not sure what to do, if they don't know what equipment to buy. We'll go through samples and lists of equipment that they can use to make the recording sound good as well. Okay. So the runtime of the show, 30 or 60 minutes, must include station ID and PSAs, submit to engineering, just like any other pre-recorded programming. I just included the link to Pacifica programming. These are some of the ones that we air. Outcasting, the Green News Report, some specials, some of the Spanish language programming, and Daily Democracy Now! We air that Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. So as soon as the comments or questions, they have to contact me directly. We have a staff list that's a communications list, so everybody can talk to each other about things. But for something like this, they have to email me directly to find out more information, or if they're not sure what to do. We have remote instructions, which I happily share with anyone, our instructions for doing remote broadcasting. And that's basically it. So, just sticking with this format. We do have people that, will record interviews through Zoom or record interviews using their phone, but those aren't music recordings, they're basically for interviews. And depending on the mic they're using with Zoom or the type of phone they're using, sometimes they need editing, sometimes they don't. But everybody has some practice before they go ahead and start doing this. So any questions at this point? If I don't have an answer for you, I can find an answer. I just included some people here. Frank Burgett, our chief engineer. Phil Merkel is a remote engineer who helps also with getting these programs on the air. Matt Mankiewicz, Tyrone Wisdom, Habanero, Bobanero, Rob Prentice, and Luke Kaiser were also responsible for helping put some of these instructions and documents together that we have related to recorded programming and also remote programming too. So.
I see a question in the chat from Marie. She asks if they have to purchase their own equipment.
So, yeah, they do have to purchase their own equipment. We were able, right during the epidemic and COVID, we were able to purchase a few sets of equipment for staff just to keep us on the air with some of our equipment money that we had. But they are required to buy their own equipment. And we do the best to provide free or really low cost options for everybody. So a lot of our staff were able to put together kits for like under $100. So, and we use for remote broadcasting, we use software called Lucy Live. There's a $5 a month option you can purchase the software with for remote broadcasting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any questions, even if it doesn't specifically contain the information I shared, but if I can answer it, I will. If not, I can always
Marie asks if the mic is included for the under $100.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So some people, you know, bought more expensive equipment because they had the ability to do that, and some people kind of got the starter kit. So there's all different options, you know. So we probably, you know, because, you know, some of our staff had, you know, did not have money to spend on this. So they kind of, it even says, I think in one of our documents, people could just like cobbled things together from, you know, whatever they had available and whatever we could share or, you know, get for them as cheaply as possible in order, you know, really the editing it in Audacity was really helpful because if stuff did not, you know, meet the standard for broadcast quality, we were able to fix it up in the studio ahead of time if they get it to us enough ahead of time. You know, during COVID and all of that, you know, we didn't have the 72-hour rule. We were like, just get us whatever you can so we can get things on the air, you know, we'll work with it. But then, you know, people, so most of our staff is back live in the studio now, but we do have a few new programs that we okayed them sending it in pre-recorded due to geographic issues and other things. And a few staff who, you know, just were not ready to come back to the studio. Or it just made sense for them to give us something pre-recorded.
Do you have mics that you recommend for broadcast quality?
I have a list of that. Sharing all my email with everybody. I do have a list which I can share. Maybe I'll stop sharing the screen and I'll find that for everybody. I'll share it with them. We're actually going to be purchasing some new podcasting equipment. So we're going through equipment lists right now to see what our best options are. Or what about, I'll just send that afterwards.
Okay.
If anybody wants some information about the equipment. I have a whole bunch of different equipment lists that I can share with people.
Ursula, you have a question?
Yeah. Do you archive any of the shows afterwards? Do you keep archives of what went on the air?
Yep, everything is archived, Ursula. Everything is archived. We keep that indefinitely.
All of your shows are saved as well as played on the air?
Yep, they're all on a server.
And how do you, I'm curious, I mean, I might be kind of changing the topic here a little bit. I'm curious how you organize that and how you organize, like, do you have a music library, either digital or, you know, CDs or records? Yes. And how do you manage those?
So we have physical CDs in the studio. I'm going to say probably about 30,000 CDs right now, physical CDs. The majority of them have been digitized. So we have a digital music library with the music stored on a server, and staff can link to that server to play the music from there. It's not the ideal equipment. That's one of our next big projects, is to be able to purchase a server and some automation software for that digital music library. We do have to still digitize about the past year and a half CDs that have come in, physical CDs. So we still have the hard copy CDs along with our digital music library. We have
so do you have somebody who's you have like a volunteer, or how do you keep up with?
We have two volunteers that manage the digital music submissions. We have a student music director and then a community volunteer that help manage the digital music submissions that we get via email or however they send them to us. So we have two volunteers.
You have some sort of vetting process, or how do you, do you put everything in that people give you, or?
No, they don't put everything in. They have listening parties. and so they listen to this stuff and then put it into the library. So yeah.
And do they have some sort of classification system? Like how do they organize all those files? Do they have categories, or how do they organize it?
So the digital music files are the CDs that we have digitized are by genre order. They're in genre categories, so you can look them up by genre. Hopefully that will be better once we have all the software and equipment that we need. The digital music files that are submitted to us, those just come in by date order, and the music director posts a link to them as new releases. So new releases, anything that comes in within the past 3 months.
And then they're moved into the genre folders after 3 months?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, so you really have to have somebody dedicated to.
Yeah, well, that's our student music director does that. So, and then
do people use that digital library? They
do. I don't, I'm not sure how many do, but they are using it. They're using it more often now than the CDs, I would say.
And what percentage would you say bring their own music, and which percentage use music from the station?
I would say this is really just a guesstimate though. I would say that probably 60% of our staff bring some of their own music, or, besides what's in the station, just because our library is so enormous that it physically and digitally that, it takes time to, if you have the time to be in the studio to go through everything, then good, and
do they ever offer to add their stuff to the library?
We ask them to. So we ask them to. So a good portion of our staff do that. We ask them to add it so that it can be shared and other people can play it. And we have vinyls. We probably have about, I want to say like 10,000 vinyls in the studio.
Wow.
Those are alphabetized. Those are by genre and alphabetized. We have a couple of student music librarians and community member music librarians that try to keep it maintained, but it's really hard because there's so much music, and we are getting new vinyls in, not many, but still get music in on vinyls to play. And we do have 2 decent turntables, so they play vinyls still. We have a bunch of 45s as well. People still want to donate vinyls to us, but we can't take anymore. We just have no room.
Yeah, I know.
And we'll probably, at some point, we'll probably get rid of the physical CDs as well, just because of space, So, Morris, did you have a question? Or?
I was just thinking, who controls the levels? I mean, is it a standard for your audio levels for your shows, or is that all done with the board out? Like say if a person records too low, the levels are too low.
If it's a pre-recorded show, that's why we'll like air check everything. If they follow that format, it should be fine. But if there is an issue, the person operating the board will have to manage that in the studio. Or if we do have the ability to remotely operate the board now too. So the person remotely operating it can do that.
And your music director pretty much takes out any explicit language in the music if need be.
The music director's responsibility is to mark anything if it's FCC, if it's not FCC clean. So physical CDs as well as the digital files. And then we have a couple of studio assistants that help with organizing the digital files on the computer, so that there's a folder for FCC clean and not FCC. We try not to put anything that's not FCC clean in the folders because we don't want accidents to happen. So
as far as editing, you know how some people, they'll send in music and you hit play and it don't start automatically, or it's too long, or it needs editing. You have a staff specifically for that, to do that?
So everything is air checked, pretty much air checked before it goes on the air. So
okay.
So we would know ahead of time if it wasn't quality to go over the air. So
okay,
we're lucky. We have over 130 volunteers, and a good portion, over 130 volunteers. A good portion of them are also on the air. They don't, some help with promotions or tabling or marketing, and they're community members, they're students, they're alumni, they're staff of the university. And we always are recruiting and getting new volunteers in. Even probably just over the summer, we probably recruited at least 6 people I can think off the top of my head, who are community members and students to help with things. And then we have recruiting fairs on campus and out in the community. We table at events out in the community, actively looking for volunteers to help with things. We're currently looking for a public service announcements director, which hopefully we'll get somebody to step up and do that, because that's important with helping get the public service announcements on the air and also recorded too. And we're looking for someone to help with underwriting, because we had students helping that graduated. So it's constantly, refreshing our staff and retraining people or training new people, constantly going on. We have a really good crew of student directors this year. So it's been making the summer go smoothly.
I see Davine had a question too.
So you don't have, how are you planning on organizing your music into some sort of program and to help you separate, classic rock from vintage rock, folk, all of that stuff? How are you going to do that?
So how are we going to do it with the digital library, Davine? So once we have more sophisticated software and additional servers to store the music on, the staff will have the ability to search the files, look through the liner notes, search by genre, search by artist, search by all of those different pieces that go into creating music or a music album. They'll have the ability to search all of those things ahead of time so that they can put their playlist or program together.
And what software are you going to be using?
Look that up. Hold on 1 second. Just give me a minute. I'll find that information for you. Okay, so what we're looking at to purchase is Zeta Core software. It's Zetta Core. Zeta Core software. So that's the software we're looking at to purchase, okay? I do have a list of like all different samples of other software that can be used for that too. If you want me to send you anything afterwards, I'm happy to share any information.
Let's see, should we just have people put their email in the chat if they want, if they'd like to?
Yeah, that's good. Can I copy and paste from there, or maybe Stephanie, you can send them to me, send the addresses to me?
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I answered questions that people were, coming to talk about for this, but if I didn't, and there's other information I can find for you, I'm happy to share that as well. Or if things you're thinking about, or you wanted to talk about related to music recording, feel free to ask. Or if I can answer it, I'll happily do that. If I can't, I'll see if I can find the information for you.
Morris.
Yes, I'm kind of confused with what the iMac does. That doesn't doesn't hold your music, or whatever system is holding your music. You can't just type in an artist's name and
no, we don't have software for that yet. So it's basically just a link to our server that's in the other room that holds the music library. So the digitized files are there, but they're in there, they're by genre, but they don't have that. We don't have the software that's needed to search for it and anything yet. That's what we're going to be purchasing next.
The search, you mean the search for a particular artist or song? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of our staff are not using that, but they are playing other digital music files, digital music submissions, right? Morris, what kind of system are you using for your digital music files?
We're on the Rivendell. We use the Rivendell for everything. All the music is in the Rivendell. We can go just type in an artist's name and it'll go straight to all of the music that we have by that artist. So we're totally automated. I mean, I pretty much manage the station from at home.
Okay.
So I can add music from at home. Yeah, I can add to our library. I can edit. I can take away. Yeah. So
cool. I'm happy to put you guys in touch with our chief engineer too. If you have more technical questions that are things that I can't answer, he'd happily talk to you if he's got time.
And I was thinking too, if you want to just send me any of the documents that you're willing to share, then people could just get in touch with me. Maybe that'd be the easiest way.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that.
Anyone else have any questions at this time?
Isabel, what you were describing was people that pre-record their shows, right?
Yes.
Do you have DJs that do live shows?
Yes, the majority of our shows are live.
And so with those shows, do you have any vetting process for their content, or they just come in and do their thing?
For the live shows?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in order to get a show, they have to submit a sample program.
Right.
And everybody does have to follow certain rules. They have to, 25% of the music on every show that plays music has to be new music. So that's music we get into the studio within 3 months. So they have to play new music. Even if they're an oldies format, they still have to play new music in that format. Great. So, yeah. And 2 to 3 public service announcements every hour, station ID every 30 minutes. So at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour and the middle of the hour, we require them to put the station ID in. And then if we sell underwriting, they have to include the underwriting at the beginning or the end of the program, because we sell the underwriting in time blocks. So, you know, when we promise a business that they're going to get the announcement at that time, then the programmer has to abide by that.
But you don't check them for like the sound quality of what they're going to put on the air. You don't
not ahead of time. No, not ahead of time. It's free format programming. So they're allowed to, you know, we're pretty lenient with people can play and say what they want. For the most part, as long as they're not violating FCC rules, station policy, university policy, you know, that we don't censor that material.
And you find that the DJs that are doing that, are they bringing in their own playlists on a cell phone or a computer and hooking up to the? Every different
possible way, Ursula. So some are. I just had a DJ call me the other day, and they were having problems with YouTube because the ad blocker was removed. So ads were popping up, and they were trying to do their whole playlist in YouTube. And I said, well, that's why we recommend you don't use YouTube. You know, I said the computers had just been updated, and one of the IT people sent out a note saying we switched out the computers. They've all been updated. So be aware of that when you come into the studio. But she didn't see the message, and she was like, I'm just going to do my show off of YouTube. I have my written playlist that I want to play off of YouTube, and she couldn't do her show. So I said, well, make sure you know how to use the CD players, because so I said, that's why we don't recommend you do that, you know. And some people use Pandora and other things like that.
Do you have DJs? I mean, I assume you have a DJ computer in the studio, so that
we have DJ and we have DJ Pro on there too.
So do you ever have DJs come in and then, you know, take shows off of the server from your library and then use it on the air as they take it out of the server?
Yes, sometimes they'll, you know, come in and, you know, if we need a fill-in or something like that, they'll play a pre-programmed show, you know. So or they'll play a show that aired previously.
Yeah.
Play it again.
Do you have 4K video downloader?
What is it?
4K video downloader?
No.
I'm not officially encouraging anybody to take things from YouTube, because you know, I'm not even sure it's legal, but if you have to do it, that is the way to do it. It's software that you can it's free software.
It's 4K video downloader, it's called.
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, 4K video downloader.
All right. Thanks.
And it's free software that you put on your computer. So, I mean, the big problem with downloading from YouTube is the you know, the predators that you have always. But the 4K video downloader is software you put on your computer, so you're not on, you know, you're not going online to get it.
Okay.
And it's great. I mean, it does the job.
Check it out.
Definitely. And it also you can also have it download videos if you want. Wow. But it does a nice job of making it. The MP3s are usually 128, so it's not the greatest quality in the world. But
it's decent, yeah.
Yeah, but it does the job, and it is the safe way to do it. So if your people must do it, tell them to, and it is free software.
We'll check it. I'll definitely check that out and have them take a look at that. You know?
It is the solution to that.
Right, to that problem, yeah.
I mean, putting YouTube on the air live is like a heck of a way to go, right? That's like really dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we try to keep, you know, the archives on the computer, because they can play, you know, in a pinch, they can play an archive program or an archive special or something. And, you know, we just ask them to announce if it's something that's timely. Say you're listening to a rebroadcast of the Bradstock Festival, which was last summer on, you know, 2021. So make an announcement like that.
Yeah.
Have to. And then the evergreen programming, which can be played anytime. It's like, you know, playlist by a genre, playlist of Caribbean music, or playlist of Christmas music, or a playlist of jazz music, or whatever, you know, that we have on there that anybody can just pull from or play from.
So far as your publishings, when they play music, just randomly play music, they have to turn in a format to you of that publishing have to be reported? I mean, we go through sound exchange, but
so
do
we
you away with that?
So we staff have to keep operations log, obviously, in the studio, but they also have to keep a program log, and they have to upload their playlist to our website. So, for example, we just did BMI logging. So they had to submit that, but we knew ahead of time they had to, they knew ahead of time, like a week ahead of time, that they had to submit their BMI logs. So we keep track of it that way.
Okay.
That answer? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
That's the video downloader there.
Oh, okay. Let's see. 4K video downloader.
Yeah, I actually just record mine from one computer to another one.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions or anything to add about how you do things at your stations?
I'm curious. I mean, do you, with the CDs and the LPs, do you have a problem with theft, or do you care at this point?
We've never really had a big problem with theft, so I don't want to say I don't care at this point because we love the music, but yeah, we just, because our staff is pretty good at checking each other. If somebody's doing something wrong, they're pretty good at calling each other out, reporting each other and saying, hey, you want to be, and, so many of our staff have been a part of the station for so many years. And people are vetted. They have to go through a training process. They have to bring a letter of recommendation. They have to be recommended by another staff person. So, it's a pretty good, trustworthy group of people that, they want the station to succeed. So they're going to take care of it.
But that's a lot of hours dedicated to managing. But do you have a sense of like how many volunteer hours a month you're dedicating to keeping the library, the digital music library under control?
I don't, but I could ask. I can ask our digital music directors, how long it's taking.
Like quite a bit.
It is quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm just surprised we still get so many CDs in the mail. Like we can't, we used to if we get duplicate CDs, we would use those for fundraising purposes. And nobody even wants the CDs anymore. Nobody wants them for free, So a lot of times we'd have musicians give us a whole box of them and say, here, use them for your fundraiser. And we can't even give them away anymore. So
yeah, I'm still old school. I like them to give me the hit. I don't want the whole CD. And I'm very clear. They email me, send me the hit. All I want is the hit single first. Get that played first, then we'll talk about your CD.
I know. Once I start listening to the music, I'm trapped. I could be there for hours. I wouldn't get any work done. So it has to be other people listening to the music, because otherwise, forget it. You'd find me lost in the music library somewhere. Come back and get me in a few days.
Wandering.
Yeah. So I need somebody with critical ears to be listening and saying yes and no.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Isabel, for the great talk today. It was a lot of great information. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I hope you got some helpful things from it. And, I'll share the documents if people want to look at it, or if you think of other questions afterwards, because we are going to have that whole sophisticated digital library set up, hopefully, once we get the funding for it. And we are doing a lot of remote broadcasting as well, with different setups depending on, what we're doing or how we're doing it, including live broadcasts. We actually have a live broadcast right now. Actually, no, probably it's not going to be on the air until 6:30. A remote broadcast from a live music festival starting at 6:30 today. If anybody wants to listen, you can hear from our website, WUSB.FM, from Patchogue, New York. We're doing a live broadcast from about 6:30 to about 8 o'clock tonight. And that's music. That's all music. So
Nice.
What did you say? What did you say your automation system was?
So we don't have an automation system.
Well, you do everything live.
Yeah, we don't have an automation system, but for some of the remote broadcasts, we use Lucy Live.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a couple more questions. Heather raised her hand. We'll go to you first, Heather.
Yeah, no, I am in a restaurant. As I said, it's very loud, but Rachel, I just wanted to thank you so much for your detailed analysis. It was just so incredibly interesting about the process you use at your station. So it's, I'm going to listen to this recording later on. I mean, it's just so interesting. So thank you so much. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And Marie asks, who is it that you put through vetting as volunteers?
So, I mean, basically everybody. You know, if they are an accepted student at our university, we don't need a letter of recommendation because obviously they've had letters of recommendations to get into the university. But they do have to go through training. If they're somebody who's outside the university and not part of the university community already, they do need a letter of recommendation and to be recommended by somebody who's already on our staff. So we do have open meetings though. So like we have open meetings. So people that are interested in joining the station, anyone can come to the meeting to get information to find out what the requirements are to join the station. And it's listed as basically 10 steps. Here's 10 steps to joining WUSB staff. And everybody doesn't have to be on the air. They have to meet additional requirements if they want to be on the air. So they have to submit a show to the program director. It's a student program director. They're elected. And there's a new one every few years. Currently, Melanie Formosa is our program director. Before her, it was Luke Kaiser. And before him, it was Robert Prentice. So they have to meet certain programming requirements and they have to go through training in order to get an on-air show. Does that answer? Marie? Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Isabel. And
you're welcome, everyone.
Yeah, this was wonderful. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It was good to have you. And if any of you guys, want some more information, email me and I'll send along whatever Isabel shares.